what are the claims that they throw at فرضاً Saudi Arabia? They say that Al Saud are Jews. We talked about it. Now we can even go deeper, and there are sources that you can even put in your community or anywhere later on. Their story is not a claim that we claim. This is basically historical facts that nobody disputes. What I'm trying to talk about today is not claims or sort of an alternative narrative. No, we are talking about historical facts nobody is disputing when we talk about their relationship with the British. And now we can go and dig deeper, and there are discussions there, but the main facts are facts. Nobody challenges these facts. If we look at where were the Jews in the last 200 years, where did they live? Where, if there's going to be some misconception about who are actually Jews, we're going to look at Yemen. Okay, we're gonna look at Morocco, we're gonna look at Iraq. The problem is a lot of these people are the people who they know the history, but they might claim something not true. In the Arabian Peninsula, in the Arabia proper, 𝗔𝗍 العربية has been made all Muslim. There have not been any even people who are descended from these kind of people. They have left the area. Rasulullah, the people that didn't die in the wars against the Banu Hadifah and that, told them to leave. To leave 𝗔𝗍 العربية, you're not welcome to stay here anymore. So even the people who became Muslim later on, they are not the descendants in the Arabian Peninsula. Most likely they're from Syria or from Iraq. The people of Palestine, as a lot of people talk now, it has been proven in many aspects that they are the real Jews, not the Ashkenazi or the people coming from Europe. The Palestinians were Canaanites, all Jews, and some from Arabs from the Arabian Peninsula. So it's a mix of all of these. But if you want to look for the Jewish DNA, that's where you're going to find it. You're not going to find it in the Arabian Peninsula, which is really ironic. You left your, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound mean, but you left your country, went for many reasons. I'm not blaming you, but you left your country, went to the country that has leadership that now when you vote, you're going to vote for either Trump or Harris, and you are criticizing MBS. What's wrong with you? You have been taking these people as leaders, okay, and you want to criticize my leaders, the leaders who are raising the flag of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the leaders who are taking care of Mecca, and you're claiming that we have فسق and concerts. What are you talking about? Look at what's happening in your country. Look at the astaghfirullah, the drugs and the homeless and the kharab that's happening between the Muslims in your country. In our country, we have tried our best to be as close to Sharia as we can and have a fair system as much as we can and balance this as much as we can. Do you have a better way? Let me see you do it. Give me another example. For me, you are living in somewhere where it's kufr. You are living under a non-Muslim. Your leader, like it or not, is a non-Muslim, and you are living under a non-Muslim law, and you are criticizing my law, who's trying to put Sharia as much as possible. But say, how can you have in Riyadh like songs and like all these concerts? You are بلد الفسق. You know what I mean? You are like in Las Vegas. Riyadh has become Las Vegas. I'm like, excuse me. Did you see how your country is running stuff? You have alcohol widely sold in the street, which we never allow that. You have astaghfirullah, but prostitutes easily found in the street everywhere. Al-fusq the akhlaq of the kafir is the dominant in these countries. Unfortunately, not fortunately, I'm not happy about this, it's saddened me, but unfortunately these countries have gone out of their way to be accepted by the West and to be sort of westernized. We don't even wear Western clothing. We still hold upon, we are proud of our culture. We are proud of our history. We are proud of Mecca and Medina. We're not here to change anything. But these people who have changed themselves and have accepted sort of these other pathways, and they have alcohol, they have prostitution legally in some of these countries, they have all these things, and they come and criticize a country of the land that is really the closest thing you can find to sort of, in my perspective, of how the ummah should be. The ummah, we are following it into my understanding the best way possible. So it really, and then when you take this sort of way of defending Saudi Arabia, they would say, oh, this is nationalism. Well, if this is nationalism, I'm a nationalist.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Abdurahman. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you on board today.
It is my honor, Ustad Ibrahim. We've been in touch the last few weeks, and I would like to thank you for really giving me the opportunity to, get into this discussion today, inshallah. And hopefully your viewers will find it interesting and engaging.
Well, I found it very interesting that after a few videos have gone viral on the channel concerning the leadership of Saudi Arabia, the origins of Saudi Arabia, the family, there's been a lot of misconception brought forward. You know, I made an effort to clarify misconceptions, but it resulted in more misconceptions. So I was able to interact with many people from Saudi Arabia who sought to challenge or clarify these misconceptions in the comment section. But I found your interaction and contributions very valuable, given your experience as somebody born in Saudi Arabia, living in Saudi Arabia, but also somebody who spent time in America, in the West. So we had a few exchanges online and also over the phone, and I found it interesting and important to bring somebody in that region, an authentic voice, to speak on behalf of the Saudi perspective. So
بارك الله فيك. We thank you for this opportunity, Ustad Ibrahim. And what is ironic, the first interaction we had was one where you were patient and you clarified your point in a very academic way. And going further, when I was following you, I found out that you are fair and academic and have a scientific approach. So I since then I've been following your content and I love it.
Barakallahu feekum, barakallahu feekum. Much appreciated. So, to introduce you to the audience, you are a doctor by profession, a medical doctor, but also you have a really strong interest in history, in historical perspectives. You have written various scripts for productions, historical productions, but also you're writing a book right now, a manuscript on democracy and the Muslim world. Can you please tell us a bit more?
The title isn't ready yet, but it's going to be something around democracy, a shoe that doesn't fit all cultural context, something around that, or like it makes more sense in Arabic. It's مقلب الديمقراطية, or like the prank of democracy. It just challenges the thought that is democracy really the best form of governance, and what is democracy, and what really gives people human rights at the end of the day. And inshallah it will be out soon, bidnillah.
Inshallah. Great. So I know that you are very passionate about Saudi Arabia, and that's a good thing. We should all love and be loyal to the nations we live in, especially Muslim nations. But as you know, there is a storm online whenever Saudi Arabia is raised, especially given the current context in the Middle East. It is always a topic of discussion, discontent, and oftentimes division, unfortunately, amongst the Muslims when we talk of Al Saud, the leading royal family currently governing the region, Saudi Arabia. And we often hear, for example, statements such as the ruling families in Saudi Arabia are Jewish, for example. They have a Jewish origin. Or that they were complicit with the British in toppling and rebelling against the Ottoman Empire and betrayed the Khilafah. And many such statements have been brought up time and time again. I have, obviously I've interacted with people, I've tried to bring historical evidence and context. But I think today is an opportunity to get somebody on the ground.
We will dig into all of these and deeply, inshallah. What's ironic is that, this family is one of the very, very few families in the world living right now that have documented their lineage very, very well. I mean, it's most people don't know their 10th grandfather or whatever. These people have been documenting their lineage for hundreds of years. I mean, for thousands of years now, and there are very few people that have done it, and these are one of the people who have done it. So for me to hear this from other people that challenge their lineage, it's very ironic. So where do you want to start? You want to start with let's start
from the beginning. Yes, from the beginning.
When we talk about, of course, the Al Saud, their main family name. Now, Al Saud is taken from the first Amir of the Saudi state, or the first Imam of the Saudi state. His name was Muhammad ibn Saud. His father's name was Saud. The family name at that time was al-Migrin. So at that time, they would be known as Muhammad ibn Saud al-Migrin. Okay, so Ibn Saud, this word, his father's name, was taken by the family later on as the Al Saud. And this is how Arab, lineage take it. They were Al-Migrin, but when they branched out, they took Al Saud, and then they're gonna branch out. They're gonna maybe be Bin Salman or whatever. Yeah, this is how families take upon. So we don't want to go down. We're gonna go up. I'm gonna go after Migrin. Who are these people? So the Imam Muhammad bin Saud, before he was Imam and before the construction of the first Saudi state, which we'll get into, he was the Amir of 𝙃𝙤𝙀. He was in fact the 15th Amir of 𝙃𝙀. 𝙃𝙀 was founded in the year 1400. It was founded by a man named Mani' al-Muradi. Okay, now Mani' al-Muradi is a well-known figure, and his lineage has been documented also all the way to back to in the 900s and 800s. Then you can find somebody there, and then their lineage is documented, goes way back. So this man, Mani' al-Muradi, he founded the city or the town of 𝙃𝙀. 𝙃𝙀 in Arabic is from the word �دِرْع. �دِرْع could mean a shield or fortress, but however, many historians say it is named after one of his grandfathers named �دِرْع. That was the name of one of his grandfathers. And actually, before Mani' al-Muradi, they were known as al-Duruዕ. Al-Duruዕ, from a branch from Banu Hadifah. So you have Banu Hadifah, Duruዕ, sons of Mani' al-Muradi. Now Mani' al-Muradi, the founder of 𝙃𝙀, from whom came a lot of families, not only the Migrins or the Ibn Saud later on known. There are many families that come from this proto family of Mani' al-Muradi. And he made the 𝙃𝙀 in the 1400s after he came from the eastern province of, which is today Saudi Arabia. There are many settlements known for the Banu Hadifah. One is Al-Yamama, and it will go eastbound all the way to the Arabian Gulf. And we're not sure why he left. He left his first settlement, but we know he originally came from Yamama, went to the east, and then came back. Why he came back, we're not sure why. Maybe a war with another tribe or something like that. However, the 𝙃𝙀 we have today, the one made in the 1400s, that was the second 𝙃𝙀. The first 𝙃𝙀 was actually in the eastern province, which is somewhere around modern day Ihsa. And it's also a farm settlement, or a fertile area that started in farms. So we know that they are from the Banu Hadifah through the al-Migrin through Mani' al-Muradi, which came in the 1400s, and Mani' al-Muradi's descendants have ruled 𝙃𝙀 for 327 years until their final son, which is Muhammad ibn Saud, was the 15th Amir. And he was the man to change it into al-Imamah and the first Saudi state. He was really the genesis of the Saudi dynasty, known as the Saudi dynasty. However, the Saudi dynasty is part of a lineage that goes back ruling 𝙃𝙀 for a very long time. So we go back to Mani' al-Muradi. Now, before Mani' al-Muradi, Mani' al-Muradi is a well-known figure to be part of the Banu Hadifah tribe. We even have accounts of Ibn Battuta when he passed by in Al-Yamama. And in his documentation, he mentioned the Amir of Al-Yamama, which is from Banu Hadifah, which Mani' al-Muradi is a descendant of. So, and then this guy is well known. You can follow his track going forward. So, there are very few people in the world that can follow their lineage this long, and the Al Saud are one of those people. So when I hear, these kind of things, it's really ironic. Going back to who are the Banu Hadifah? Maybe Banu Hadifah are Jews. So let's see what the Banu Hadifah are. The Banu Hadifah are, Hanifa is Hanifa bin Lujaym bin Sa'b bin Ali bin Bakr bin Wa'il. So they are one of the branches of the Bakr bin Wa'il clan. The Bakr bin Wa'il tribe was a mother or proto-tribe for many other Arab tribes. Their branches are the people who fought 𝗃𝙗𝙗 against the Persians, if you know that very famous story, defending the Ghassanids. So they descend from Bakr bin Wa'il. Now, Bakr bin Wa'il originally is from ال-Hijaz. As Banu Hadifah are descended from Bakr bin Wa'il, and they descend originally from ال-Hijaz. In the Wadi Baqa, in the area of Mecca. Okay, and they immigrated. These at that time they probably identified as Bakr bin Wa'il. They don't identify as Hanifa at that time. Maybe they did, but once they settled in Riyadh, they took on the new, identity of Hanifa instead of, clinging on the further Bakr bin Wa'il. So they left Al-Hijaz. Initially, they wanted to go to the east coast in the farmlands of Ihsa, of the eastern coastal Saudi Arabia, but they took a break midway, and which is Al-Yamama or Riyadh now. This area was actually, it was inhabited by a people called 𝗃𝗏 and 𝗔𝗎. These people are the from the Arab al-Ba'ida, we call them, or the Arabs that have disappeared. يعني. 𝗃𝗏 and 𝗔𝗎 went into a very bad war together, and they almost became extinct. So when the Banu Hanifa came, they found the area, good for settlement, and nobody will challenge them on it. So they settled. Actually, he put his stick on the ground, and he said, حجرت هذا المكان يعني لقد حجرته, which means I have locked it for me. And that is the first name of which is modern day Riyadh, which is Hijr. The area is called Al-Yamama. Al-Yamama is a very big area, so it is Hijr Al-Yamama. Later on, when his relatives came, they said, give us, from this beautiful land Al-Yamama. So he يعني نفح لهم, لقد نفح لهم something, he gave them as a gift, so that became منفوحة. Today, Riyadh is basically the Manfuha and Hijr together. This is what we call Riyadh today. And it has expanded even into Dir'iyah. So Dir'iyah and Riyadh are two different cities. So this is how the Banu Hanifa settled in Riyadh. Now, again, so Banu Hanifa, they go from Bakr all the way back to Bakr bin Wa'il. Bakr bin Wa'il, if you try to follow 6 grandfathers above Bakr bin Wa'il, now I used to remember them at one point of time, but I'm not going to attempt it. They're going to kill me in the comment section. But six people before Bakr bin Wa'il, they will reach somebody called Rabi'ah. Now, Rabi'ah is the brother of Mudhar. Mudhar is the person the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ descend from. So Prophet Muhammad and Quraysh descend from Mudhar. Mudhar is the brother of Rabi'ah. Bakr bin Wa'il descend from Rabi'ah. Now, Rabi'ah and Mudhar, these two brothers, are the sons of Nizar bin Ma'ad bin Adnan. Hence, we get the word the Adnani Arabs. And Adnan is a descendant of Ismail alayhi salam. This is the belief. So, they can make the claim. They can make the claim, Al-Saud, that they can follow all the way back to Adnan, which is a very, very, very long time ago, which is actually remarkable. Yani, Arabs are never known for good documentation, except the Quran and lineages. This has been the only things that have been really kept good. Most of the people who have kept, documentations of things in the past were mostly, especially in the beginning, were not Arabs. And I'm talking about the Muslims. But when it comes to lineage and the Quran, it has been really kept hard by the Arabs, and it's one of the few things that's been documented very well.
And this is very important because, again, I oftentimes come across the claim that the Al-Saud and the Wahhabi movement, we'll touch upon that a bit later, was a conception from the British spies who infiltrated the region during the Ottoman era, who created a new kind of movement, and basically imposters entered the region, and Al-Saud came from there. And these are proto-crypto Jews who effectively are masquerading as Muslims to basically undermine.
They couldn't be more indigenous. They really couldn't be more indigenous than they are. They are truly from the... And many people also mix between the Al-Saud and the Hashemites in the Hijaz, and when we talk about, like, in context with involvement with the British, yes. They really mix these two stories up, and they don't distinguish really the story of Al-Saud. And this is their story is not a claim that we claim. This is basically historical facts that nobody disputes. What I'm trying to talk about today is not claims or sort of an alternative narrative. No, we are talking about historical facts. Nobody is disputing when we talk about their relationship with the British. And now we can go and dig deeper, and there are discussions there, but the main facts are facts. Nobody challenges these facts, but some people they have this prejudgment perspective, and khalas, we will talk about later why. Maybe you'll help me with this. I'm not very familiar why, but they have this prejudgment, and khalas, they don't want to talk about it. If you want now, the what really hurts is, I living in Saudi Arabia. We have Muslims of all different nationalities, يعني living peacefully, loving each other, speaking. يعني you really feel like an ummah here, where you see, Saudi Arabia has a big economy, and thus they have a lot of people working more. يعني not only Saudis, so we have a lot of people that are foreign workers here, and most of them are Muslims. So my perspective on Muslims was absolutely different than what I found in the internet. And later on, I found that this is actually not just a comment section thing. This is actually a perspective, something people believe in the West, in the United States and the UK. Muslims there actually believe this stuff. It's not just trolling in the internet. They actually believe this. So this was, what really made me want to, sort of express this in your great.
Well, as you know, unfortunately, there are books. For example, there is a book known as Confessions of a British Spy, by a certain Humphreys, an agent Humphreys, and this has been publicized and widely circulated amongst certain communities, which does have a lot of claims. So such claims as crypto Jews who were infiltrators, British spies coming in, all of this was actually informed as a result of this book, and this book is often cited in the comments as evidence. Now, we're not going to get into the book because it's not an academic book.
It's not, يعني, the main hardcore sources, and the people, you should always ask the indigenous people of the area. We supported bin Saud, not because, يعني, let me tell you something. Mohammed ibn Saud there is no way he can fight the Ottoman Empire without the support of the indigenous people and the tribes of Arabia. There is absolutely no way. And I say this in Saudi Arabia, and everybody knows it. There's absolutely no way Mohammed bin Saud was able to unify this country against the Ottomans when he was, like an outsider or not known. His lineage is very well known, and his mission was a just mission. And there is a lot of history behind it that people don't know and don't understand, the struggles that the people of Arabia went through, especially before the first Saudi state and going to the second Saudi state, third Saudi state. Really, some really hardships and struggles. And this family has sacrificed themselves multiple times, really, for me, protecting the Arabian Peninsula. And I will defend this in the points I will express to you now.
Well, I think we will have to have several parts to this discussion. There's a lot to cover, actually, from the ancient, as you mentioned, Banu Hadifah, which we know anyway in the early Islamic history. They are mentioned. It is in the records. Banu Hadifah is clear. They are mentioned, and it's not something that is. It's not a 19th century. It's not conception. They're known. The lineage is there. They were Christians who became Muslims, and I made a video actually on the origins of Banu Hadifah, because the misconception, it triggered a lot of people, because I wrote the myth of the Najdi Jews. Yes, yeah, but it is a myth. It is a myth, to be very honest. Again, I'm not being paid by the Saudi establishment. I have no horse in the race. It's just being honest and just. They were Christians who became Muslims, and as we know in the Islamic ethos, you get double the reward. If you were from Ahlul Kitab, then you became Muslim. So it's not an insult to say that they were Christian. Actually, it's an honor, because amongst the Arabs, the rest were pagans. And these are already Ahlul Kitab.
Were not pressured as much as the pagans to come into the deen. They were sort of relaxed a bit, يعني, the way they were not really pressured as much as the pagans, يعني, because يعني, the Muhammad ﷺ really focused on the pagans first and trying to convince them. The first message to Banu Hadifah from Rasul ﷺ was a message sent to Ḥudhr bin Ali. Ḥudhr bin Ali was the king of, he was named, his nickname was the Crown. He was the king of Yamama, and the first to be named king of.
Sorry, before you go, there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of history to unpack. Again, another thing that I like to discuss is the misconception that the Arabs before Islam were nothing. They had no civilization, they had no kingdoms, they had nothing. So you mentioned kings, Christian kings in the region. Tell us about that. Were there indeed kingdoms at the time? Did they have?
We have found recently in Saudi Arabia, archaeology became a thing. So we have found in somewhere near Riyadh old coins that were initially Byzantine coins, but were written, by carbon dating, they can understand that it was written over it. And it was written over it a very long time ago about the Christian leader in this area. But it was not clear exactly who they're talking about. Some actually claim it was Musaylama, some claim it was 𝗲𝗤 bin Ali, but it wasn't clear who this person they're talking about was. And yes, you are correct. Now when we talk about the civilizations in Jahiliyyah, there are many. One of them, one very clear one, is 𝗲𝗤 bin Ali, or he was named the Crown. He used to have good relations with Kisra, or the Shah of Iran. And one very funny story, or not funny, interesting story. The Shah of Iran controlled Yemen. He controlled the south of Yemen. So a lot of his caravans went through the central area of Riyadh. There are two tribes that protected this caravan. One is Banu Hanifah, the other one is Banu Tamim. So an interesting story is 𝗲𝗤, being a bit greedy, he wanted to keep all the benefit of carrying this caravan all the way down to Yemen, and agreed with the Persians in the caravan that, look, we don't need Banu Tamim. I'll take them all the way. Now, Banu Tamim are very known to be very fierce people. They never unite together. They cannot make one unit like Banu Hanifa can always make sort of a unit, a government. But Banu Hanifa always fight with each other. But they are very, very fierce fighters. And so they found out. So they followed 𝗲𝗤, killed everybody, and kept 𝗲𝗤, because 𝗲𝗤 was a very rich man. So 𝗲𝗤 had to buy himself out, and he did. But he wasn't done. He was gonna get back to them. And the reason why he hated Banu Tamim was because they killed his father. So he went back to, he actually traveled all the way to Shah of Iran and told him about the story. And the Shah said, how many children do you have? He said, I have 10. He said, 𝗲𝗤, who do you love the most? He said, I love the sick until he's healthy. I love the one who has traveled until he comes back. I love the young until he becomes older. And and he was a poet. He has some beautiful, beautiful poetry. He was Christian. So the Shah of Iran crowned him and made him sort of, the Shah of Iran, of course, was a very powerful person at that time. And he crowned him as the king of the Arabs and the poet of Al-Yamama and his people. So later on, this man, 𝗲𝗤 bin Ali, was actually alive during Rasul ﷺ and the wahi that came to him. So Rasul sent these messages around, and one of them reached 𝗲𝗤, and it was and the person who brought the message also had the Quran. It was not still, the Quran was not completed, but it was somewhat halfway written. 𝗲𝗤 read it and he said, wow, what a beautiful scripture, and so nice and beautiful. I would love to join this religion, but if you give me part of what you have, something like that. Rasul obviously ignored that, and he died as a Christian. He didn't come into Islam. But the first person or notable person of Banu Hanifa to come into Islam, I know I'm going away from the kingdoms.
No, this is very good. This is very good history. It's very good history.
The first person or notable historically person from Banu Hanifa and from the central region of Arabia to come into Islam is a person named Thumama bin Abi Athal, which is a Sahabi later on. He started to become a leader of Al-Yamama after 𝗲𝗤 bin Ali died. And he was not the king of all Yamama like 𝗲𝗤 bin Ali, but he was a powerful person. He was, now before I get to 𝗲𝗤 bin Ali, some people have to understand that the middle region of Al-Yamama is an area that is not desert. It is surrounded by desert, but it is a fertile land that has a lot of underground water. But it is surrounded by desert. As opposed to the Hijaz is a rocky area that is hard to grow and very hard to dig for a well. Whereas the central region is very easy to dig for a well, and the ground is very fertile for growing, and water is very surface area. So the Yamama was considered the breadbasket of Mecca. So Mecca depended absolutely entirely on Al-Yamama for food. Even Medina did not produce as much as Al-Yamama did. Al-Yamama was much more food production. Till this day, if you see Saudi Arabia from the sky, you see all these crop fields. All of them are in the middle of Saudi Arabia, not in the west, not in the north, not in the south. This area is, subhanAllah, has a lot of water and is good fertile land for growing. So this gave Banu Hanif a lot of leverage over Mecca and over Quraysh. This is why they had very good relations with Quraysh, or Quraysh tried to have very good relations with them as well. So this man, 𝗤𝗡𝗅 bin Abi Athal, he was going for Mecca and we don't know why. He was traveling to Mecca and we don't know why. Halfway through, he encountered some Muslims that he got into an interaction with, a negative interaction with. Again, we don't know exactly. We have historians talking about some this and that, but it's not part of the hadith. What happened was he was taken to Rasul. This is now we're getting into the part of the hadith. Yani. He was taken to Medina and he was tied to a pole. Now these Muslims, you know the story, I bet.
Yes,
now these Muslims, they don't know who this person is. Rasul identified who this person was, and he said, you have captured one of the leaders of Banu Hanifah, and it will be great for him to enter Islam. So Rasul ﷺ, he's a very wise person. He came to 𝗤𝗡𝗅 and he said to him, trying to get him into the religion. 𝗤𝗡𝗅, having this stubborn Arab tribal of that time, very proud people, but honest and righteous, but stubborn. So the Prophet said that you have to come into Islam. He said, you can, if you want to kill me, then you will have bloodshed coming upon the people of Arabia. If you want to let me go for free, then you will be granted a friend. But if you want money, then money you shall have. So this is the three ways that 𝗲𝗡 explained how we're going to get out of this problem. Rasul kept him. Rasul was very generous with him. He was feeding him from his own camel, from his own milk of the camel, from his own food, not from anybody else's food. So in the second day, Rasul came, same thing, same answer from 𝗲𝗡𝗅. The third day, the Rasul asked 𝗲𝗡𝗅, 𝗲𝗡𝗅 gave him, he said, this is the same as yesterday, ya Muhammad. So Rasul ﷺ said, let him go. So 𝗲𝗡𝗅 then, you have to understand, he was watching the Rasul in the mosque, guiding the prayers the last 3 days. So 15 prayers now, he was studying the Muslims. So he took wudu and he took shahada and he became a Muslim. Now, after that, they asked him, what if we killed you, 𝗲𝗡𝗅? What if we killed you and you died as a kafir? How is that going to work? He said, I don't want to die. I don't want to be known as the person who went into Islam forcefully. I went into Islam because I was convinced of what you guys let me go, but I took this because I was convinced of it. And he went now to Mecca, but this time he's going to Mecca as a Muslim. His main destination was Mecca when the Muslims found him and took him to the Rasul. And he was the first, when he entered Mecca, he said, لبيك اللهم لبيك, and he made the tawaf around the Kaaba. That's why he is known as the first person to perform Umrah. If you look in Islamic history, who was the first to perform Umrah? It was 𝗲𝗡𝗅 bin Abi Athal. Now this was, as you can consider it, proto-Umrah. It wasn't, the Rasul didn't do the Hajj yet. So we don't know exactly. However, he was the first to go around, do the tawaf around the Kaaba and pray to the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quraysh, were like, who is this heretic? Nobody tries to do this from the Muslimin because they were not as powerful as this man was powerful. So when the Quraysh tried to kill him, they knew who he was, so they left him. But he felt degraded when they tried to kill him. So when he came back, he sanctioned Mecca from the seeds and the food. And he said, the only way I will allow food to go back to Mecca is when the Rasul ﷺ agrees that I give you the food. So now the pagan Meccans went to Muhammad and in a context of we are relatives, Muhammad, you can't let your people starve. Muhammad ﷺ asked 𝗲𝗡𝗅, being the person he is, ﷺ, asked 𝗲𝗡𝗅 to stop the sanction. And this is the story of the first Muslim from Banu Hanifah. Now later on, Banu Hanifa came into Islam, and now there is the whole Ridda wars and the whole, and Banu Hanifa was severely involved in that story as well. But it is not the whole history of these people. I always say when people try to sort of bring out Musaylima, I say, yes, Musaylima was from Banu Hanifa, but we shall never forget that Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab were from
I was
Quraysh.
going to say
And
that, yes.
yes, and Quraysh are the most honorable Arabs. Allah chose from Banu Hashim Muhammad, and they chose from the Arab, he chose Banu Hashim. This is an honored because they are the family of the Prophet. And yet they, one of the, they're even worse than Musaylima, what they did to the Prophet. So it cannot be put upon a people.
This is very, very, very good and very candid. I like the fact that you're forthcoming with it and gave a lot of context. So what I'm gathering here is that Al Saud, as a family, a clan, a branch, actually traces its lineage all the way back to even before Islam, to Christians who lived in the Arabian Peninsula.
But all of Banu Hanifa were Christians at that time. Most of them were Christians. Now some of them, what we heard, some of them is like a Hanafi sort of religion, like they are muwahhidun, monotheists, Christians, let's say, not taking on Jesus. And I think I'm not well versed on this. Maybe you can help me. I think there was a sort of sect in Arabia of Christians that were monotheists.
Nestorians.
There you go.
Nestorians.
And of course, this area is all blurred. Were they, monotheists? Were they full-blown Christians as we know them today, of Orthodox? I don't know, but we know that most of them were Christians. We know that even the things that we found a church in Al-Khard which was turned into a mosque, and it was also under the rubble. So it was very, very interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of history. The misconception is to really just essentialize everything. It's unfortunate that we have taken an essentialist approach to history. There were Jewish people who came under the British. It was just, everything is very two-dimensional.
What the thing is, Ustad Ibrahim, what the thing that really sort of ticks me off a little bit? If we look at where were the Jews in the last 200 years, where did they live? Where, if there's going to be some misconception about who are actually Jews, we're going to look at Yemen. Okay, we're going to look at Morocco. We're going to look at Iraq. I mean, the problem is, a lot of these people are the people who, they know the history, but, they might claim something not true. In the Arabian Peninsula, in the, Arabia proper, Al-Jazeera Al-Arabiya has been made all Muslim. There have not been any, even people who are descended from these kind of people. They have left the area. Rasulullah, the people that didn't die in the wars against the Banu Qaynuqa and that, told them to leave. To leave Al-Jazeera Al-Arabiya, you're not welcome to stay here anymore. So even the people who became Muslim later on, they are not the descendants in the Arabian Peninsula. Most likely they're from Syria or from Iraq. The people of Palestine, as a lot of people talk now, it has been proven in many aspects that they are the real Jews, not the Ashkenazi or the people coming from Europe. The Palestinians were Canaanites, all Jews, and some from Arabs from the Arabian Peninsula. So it's a mix of all of these. But if you want to look for the Jewish DNA, that's where you're going to find it. You're not going to find it in the Arabian Peninsula, which is really ironic.
It's politicized in identity politics here, because it's all within a certain context. Perhaps it's a way of making sense of the world, perhaps a way of shifting blame, but it is contextual.
I'm not trying to rationalize why these people sort of have the way they have. I'm going to have a good niyyah, and I'm going to say it is misconception and misunderstanding, and that's why I'm here today. If it's any other reason, then I don't care صراحة, لأنه there's nothing I can do about it. So if this the reason is not knowing the history, then we are here to sort of lay it out. If there's any other reason, then I'm gonna think about something else. It's not my job to sort of be hurt about this. The other thing is Arabia. Now I'm not blaming the people that don't understand Saudi Arabia, especially from, let's say, Pakistani or people from the sub-Indian continent that live in the West. Maybe they don't understand Saudi Arabia and they are affected by the Western propaganda. But I'm talking about especially the Arabs in the region that really know Saudi Arabia. Yani it's not hard to understand it. Now, these people, they have a sort of prejudice which is sort of really يعني not healthy. It is not healthy. How can you have in Riyadh like songs and like all these concerts? You are بلد الفسق, you know what I mean? You are like in Las Vegas. Riyadh has become Las Vegas. I'm like, excuse me, did you see how your country is running stuff? You have alcohol widely sold in the street, which we never allow that. You have يعني استغفر الله, but prostitutes easily found in the street everywhere. الفسق the akhlaq of the kafir is the dominant in these countries. Unfortunately, not fortunately, I'm not happy about this, it saddens me, but unfortunately these countries have gone out of their way to be accepted by the West and to be sort of westernized. We don't even wear Western clothing. We still hold upon, we are proud of our culture. We are proud of our history. We are proud of Mecca and Medina. We're not here to change anything. But these people who have changed themselves and have accepted sort of these other pathways, and they have alcohol, they have prostitution legally in some of these countries, they have all these things, and they come and criticize a country of the land that is really the closest thing you can find to sort of, in my perspective, of how the ummah should be run. Alcohol is forbidden. All these things that astaghfirullah is not allowed. There is a sense of community. If you come to Saudi Arabia and you see in Salat al-Jum'ah a man walking, okay, let's say like a non-Saudi, a guy labor, walking in the sun, wallah al-azim, I swear you would not, people will challenge, sort of get into challenge to who would stop first and get this guy in the car in the air condition, so they go together to the mosque. The sense of community is absolutely magnificent, and you would never find this in these countries that criticize us for not being a Muslim, for not following the Muslim Ummah. We are the Muslim Ummah. We are following it into my understanding the best way possible. So it really, and then when you take this sort of way of defending Saudi Arabia, they would say, oh, this is nationalism. Well, if this is nationalism, I'm a nationalist. Take me home. I'm a nationalist, and that's fine. However, of course, for me, Saudi Arabia and Islam is one. It is interchangeable. You can't take one and put the other. And of course, there's a lot to talk about now, why we regard the Al Saud dynasty the way they have, because of what they have done to sort of restore the Arabian Peninsula. The people, do we have time to talk about the struggle?
We have a lot of time, but I think you have opened so many doors right now. You've said so many things that will really just you've lit many sparks. So, but it's good. This is what we want: honest, direct, authentic conversation. So you've opened so many doors here, but I would like to just ask this question: do you believe Saudi Arabia is held to a different standard compared to other Muslim nations? I understand what you've said concerning the liberalization policies in other Arab nations surrounding Saudi Arabia, and the exceptionalism applied to Saudi Arabia, as in why Saudi Arabia is going a certain direction, whereas the others are doing it already. Do you believe there's an exceptional standard applied only to Saudi Arabia? And if so, why? Why is that the case?
You mean, can I rephrase your question? You mean that why critics put different standards on Saudi Arabia and other?
And why is that the target always in the region?
You mentioned something very, very wonderful, and after watching, I don't remember where, but I'm sure that you are the one who talked about it. Was, there is a trend in the last 50 years, sort of trying to attack Islam, basically attack anything that is Islam, starting from the periphery going to the center. We can see Egypt absolutely gone haywire. We can see Iraq absolutely invaded, and Iraq is just a tool of Iran now, absolutely sad. Syria, the hundreds of thousands of people killed, the immigration of many people, and it goes on and on and on and on. Libya, it goes on. And I think that now there is a focus on Saudi Arabia to make the region sort of hate Saudi Arabia, to put Saudi Arabia in a position where it is hated by absolutely everybody around it. Why? Because they don't want Islam to succeed. Any country that will raise La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah will be fought against. I truly believe this. Any country that raises La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and take pride in being the custodian of Mecca, it's gonna be pressured. Now, I don't sort of get angry about why your enemies are gonna fight you. This is the game. Focus on the game. I'm not angry. Why are you fighting me? This is your job as my enemy. Now, you Muslims, why are you fighting me? This is where the issue comes. This is where I'm mind blown. Now, another funny thing that really, now I'm gonna be specific on Muslims with the UK.
Be direct.
The problem with not all of you, but some of you guys, now, astaghfirullah, what you have done, blah, blah, blah. Now, we know how UK is a liberal country. But let me add it even worse. Now, I was fascinated by the following on, what's his name? Andrew Tate. Like role model now. Now you are criticizing Saudis and Saudi Arabia for not being conservative, and you are following this guy as a role model. There is some cognitive dissonance here. There is absolute some cognitive dissonance, and there is a problem with the identity, and there is so much to fix. Stop attacking other Muslims. Stop pressuring Saudi Arabia. Even if Saudi Arabia you think is doing something wrong, leave us alone. Help us. Give us nasiha and help us improve. Saudi Arabia has, I don't want to be that person, but Saudi Arabia, in one time, Najd has died of famine. Multiple times in the last 400, 500, died in famine. Okay, we never blamed the Palestinians, we never blamed the Syrians, we never blamed the Egyptians. Why didn't you give us food? Okay, we never claimed that your rivers and your bounty should be spread about all the Arabs. No, we were proud and had dignity and worked hard upon ourselves. We run caravans. We never asked, we never became jealous about, this is you should do this for us. No, we should do this for ourselves. And people died of famine in Najd. Now, go forward. When these areas needed us, we paid with, and now, astaghfirullah, I'm trying to be with much humility as I can, but this is just the facts. Saudi Arabia, even though nobody helped us at multiple times in history, we paid with everything we have. Because why? Because we knew what we went through. And we didn't want other Muslims to go through that. And we're not even talking about the Middle East and the Arab area. Other, Muslims around the world that, went through hunger, went through that. Saudi Arabia really, and I'm not even talking about the government. I'm talking about Saudi citizens. If we go back, Saudi citizens, wallahi, I think people think there are multiple Saudi, most Saudi citizens, they're not able to pay, this sort of, be this generous with the money that they give in charity. But they do. They do. The women sell their gold to give to charity, which is, it saddens me that at the end you will get this. This is why, wallahi, I'm now afraid on Saudis. The reaction now from Saudis, you can see now, and I've seen it a lot. They're very defensive. They're very defensive now. They become sort of
embattled
because of what they know about their history, and then how people deal with them. They became now defensive, became hateful, and I think this is what the agenda wants. If they are not, these people attack you and then Saudis attack them, then this is not
division. Yes,
we want to be brothers. We want to grow. I gave you my nasiha on what I think the problems are in the Muslims in the West. You are, you can talk about what you think is your nasiha is, and we'll take it kindly. But this, the word madkhali, this Wahhabi, these slurs that are absolutely disgusting. I don't know. Now we have a lot to talk about. Wahhabis, for me, this is a slur. Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab did not bring anything new. He is not a scholar with a new school. He is a person that went around the Arabian area to Egypt, Iraq, and whatever, and came back and to try to. He was trying to teach people the Hanbali way. Okay, so he was a Hanbali, a Salafi person. He was not bringing anything new. There was nothing new in anything he was talking about, and nobody called anybody at that time or after Wahhabi. So when you use this word Wahhabi, for us it is a slur. Madkhali, I don't remember when Saudi Arabia has ever been considered a Madkhali. Now, what the person, Madkhali is from a sheikh called Madkhali. Yeah. Now, this person had some idea of how things should be run. Now, Saudi Arabia as a country might or Salafism and Hanbalism might have parts of what he thought, but he's different from what Hanbali and Salafi is. And it's enough even with Hanabi, Salafi, that we are Muslim. We are Muslim, and we both pray to the same God, to the same direction. We read the same Quran. We might, have differences in what hadith and what school. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. That's healthy. However, calling names Wahhabi, this is just disgusting, yani, and
So,
not something that we should.
would you say, I mean, I'm getting the feeling here that there is a deal of misunderstanding and generalization, gross generalization concerning the Al Saud, the origins of the actual kingdom, the people in Saudi Arabia, society in Saudi Arabia. How would you say is the best way to begin unpacking these misconceptions? Because as you mentioned earlier on, and I agree, not just for Saudi Arabia, for all nations, all Muslim nations, if we as Muslims, as brothers to one another, are involved in maligning the next Muslim nation, we only make it easier for the external enemy to come and take all of us after the path. Yeah. So if I'm from country A and I'm attacking country B, Muslim nation, and they also have their own misconceptions, they target me, we're making it a lot easy to, first of all, there's enmity between the people. There's no more ukhuwa, there's enmity, and that can open spaces for other people to fall in and say, fine, Muslims are divided now.
Fearing. I'm telling you now, the Saudis have become very defensive of these people, because what they know of how they are mislabeled by other Muslims. So it's dangerous. Wallahi, it's dangerous. And I hope that the Muslim community can understand this. And I think the only way to fix it, as to answering your question, is it's basically this what we're doing now is talking about it. What are the claims that they throw at Farad Saudi Arabia? They say that Al Saud are Jews. We talked about it. Now we can even go deeper, and there are sources that you can even put in your community or anywhere later on, that the mountains of evidence is, in fact, they are the most people that can find their lineage in the world. For you actually to label them as Jewish is just silly. It's just ironic, yani. So we finished that one, but we can get into, let's say, like the fusq that's happening in Saudi Arabia, which is absolutely also silly. I traveled the world, and I know that, alhamdulillah, the community here, the Muslim community here, you can't find it anywhere. And there is, alhamdulillah, we don't have a lot of what is the fisq in every other countries. In fact, I don't know many countries, or even any, that have the laws that we do, and have sort of held the balance, the way that we have. And Allah la yaghayir alayna, inshallah, But so I mean, that's silly. These are facts and laws. We have them here. You can come to Saudi Arabia and experience it. Many, if they are fair, come to Saudi Arabia either in Hajj or in tourism, and come see the people, see the community, see the volunteers in Mecca that came and want to help the people in Hajj. By the way, most of the people in Mecca that sort of are organizers, these are volunteers. They don't get any money. They bring food, trying to help people. We take pride of helping Muslims. So when we come to our country and experience it, see it, talk to Saudis, then have prejudice. Learn, then judge. Don't judge before you learn. That's a big problem, big mistake.
And how do you feel as somebody who actually is English speaking, mashallah, so you have access to Western media and you can hear the conversations, the narratives that are being spun in the online Muslim spaces from the UK, from America. How do you feel about the Muslim communities who actually reside in the West but are very critical of Muslims in Saudi Arabia, mathalan, yeah?
Very hypocritical. You left your, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound mean, but you left your country, went for many reasons, I'm not blaming you, but you left your country, went to the country that has leadership, that now when you vote, you're going to vote for either Trump or Harris, and you are criticizing MBS. What's wrong with you? You have been taking these people as leaders, okay? And you want to criticize my leaders, the leaders who are raising the flag of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the leaders who are taking care of Mecca, and you're claiming that we have fusuq and concerts. What are you talking about? Look at what's happening in your country. Look at the astaghfirullah, the drugs and the homeless and the kharab that's happening between the Muslims in your country. In our country, we have tried our best to be as close to Sharia as we can, and have a fair system as much as we can, and balance this as much as we can. Do you have a better way? Let me see you do it. Give me another example. For me, you are living in somewhere where it's kufr. You are living under a non-Muslim. Your leader, like it or not, is a non-Muslim, and you are living under a non-Muslim law, and you are criticizing my law, who's trying to put Sharia as much as possible. The Saudi people and their leadership is maybe understandable by other people because of what we didn't yet talk about in the history of the struggle. Inshallah, we can talk about it in another day. But this family is really, the people really know their history. They know what these people have sacrificed for unifying the Arabian Peninsula. And when you attack our leaders, we take it personally. And for us, it's like, why are you attacking this man who's trying to يطبق الشريعة, trying to raise La ilaha illallah? He is the one helping other Muslims. We are the Muslim community. And you live in the non-Muslim community, shouting us from the other side, throwing rocks at us.
I've also cautioned people to keep in mind, a great ruler is not the same thing as a pious ruler. If you're looking for saints and scholars and ulama and zuhad and a good ruler, we've seen in the past, some of the greatest rulers were not necessarily the best, the most saintly people. And some of the most saintly people, some of the most saintly people were not always the best rulers. There's a level of balance here between what it takes to rule a nation and to keep stability, and what is essentially a good human being who maybe individually in a small community is able to keep people together.
A leader attracts followers by nature. A good leader will attract followers. People will not follow a person who's not a leader. Doesn't either, what makes you a leader now, you need to be fair. It doesn't mean that you are absolutely righteous or, حافظ القرآن completely or anything like that. No, but he is a fair person. Now, we can see this between Abdul Aziz and Al-Hussein bin Ali, the Hashemite of Al-Hijaz. Nobody supported him. The people of Hijaz supported Abdul Aziz over him. Why? Because Abdul Aziz was a homegrown thing. It was
pedigree, yes.
Yes, and that's all. Hashemi has pedigree as well. But I mean, this man has been following in the same momentum as his ancestors for a very long time. This is not a creation of new, Saudi Arabia in its first state has been a thing since the 1700s. And this is on the same motion. This is not on something, Abdul Aziz was continuing the same motion started by Imam Muhammad bin Saud. So, and he a leader that is followable. He was a fighter. He was a warrior. People will go.
The natural magnetic pull of a natural born leader and a pragmatic leader. That's the most important thing here, because you need to know when to strike, when to be diplomatic, when to push, when to pull, as we know the very famous statement of 𝗼𝙗𝗎𝗍, Muawiyah's hair. He said, what's the wisdom with your great rulership, Muawiyah, radiallahu anhu? And he said that if somebody's holding a piece of hair and I'm holding on to it, if they pull, so he knew when to push, when to pull, and exactly.
Yeah, and Muawiyah is very smart about it, and I think Abdul Aziz was as well, and Muhammad bin Saud was as well. Imam Muhammad bin Saud, he was the first person, and I think he deserves. And we for the listeners, we want to discuss why what happened between the Al Saud and the Ottomans. This is very important, especially about the misconception about the betrayal and nothing. So let's just jump into it now. Maybe we can continue it later on. But in the year 1727, okay, when Muhammad bin Saud was the 15th Emir of Dir'iyah, okay, he was Muhammad bin Saud al-Migrin at that time and period. He made the genius idea of, because of how bad the Najd was at that specific time of, as we said, the famines and the drying of wells. That point of time was a hard point of time for Najd at that exact point of time. And as you would know, hardship sort of moves people. And at that time, he was trying to sort of create a unified governance, because as these separated towns, if they don't unite, then this famine, this dry wells, and this problem will really affect everybody hard. So in this motion that he was going through, a man came up called Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, which just came from abroad, and he was saying that this bid'ah and this wrong way of practice of Islam has now entered Najd. Now, Najd is a very isolated area. So they were sort of still holding on a lot of things, not affected by the Turks, not affected by the things outside of the Arabian Peninsula. Whereas the Hijaz, it's everybody's land. It's not really a hometown of the Hijazis anymore. But Najd has preserved sort of like that sort of independence and that personality and character. So when this started to affect Najd, you can see Muhammad bin Abdul Wahab now preaching that this is not right, this is not how Islam is. And this was in the same time of how Muhammad bin Saud was trying to unify Najd. So actually, it was the wife of Muhammad bin Saud, and her name is she's from the family called al-Kathiri. Okay, now I forgot her first name. She was the wife of Muhammad bin Saud. She is actually credited for creating the Al Saud dynasty, in fact.
Wow.
Because she was the person who, or at least a part of a lot of people who helped created this wonderful dynasty. Because she was the person who convinced Muhammad bin Saud that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab is a person you should align with. He's been preaching, the right way of Islam. You've been preaching a preach of unification of governance and politics. He's been, preaching, it's all the same preaching at the end. Why don't you two unite under one umbrella? And that's actually what happened. And it coincided when the Ottomans prevented the people of Najd to go to do Hajj.
Yes, there was that.
There are many, of course, claims why, and one of them is because of the preaching of people going to Hajj, saying you can't do that, you can't do that. We have long tongues, so people were being aggressive, and you can't pray that way, and so they were sort of forbidden. Now there are other claims of stealing caravans and whatnot. That
is a chapter we have to explore on its own. There's a lot there. There is a lot there. There's a lot we have to really special just for that. There's a lot in that.
That was just the starting point of the first Saudi state. The amount of struggle that the Hijaz went through. I don't want to burn it all now. I sort of want a specific episode on the Ottomans and the Saudis and why the Saudis stood up against the Ottomans, because there are so many nuance, so many information there that we can hit up to. And I don't want to mix it up with what we're talking today about, sort of an introduction of who the Al Saud is, and sort of clear up a lot of the misconceptions.
Excellent. I mean, it has really been very enlightening. I like to hear authentic voices, whether I agree or disagree. I think it's important to give people space and opportunities to express themselves in the most authentic way. This is the only way we can open up doors to understand one another, to appreciate different perspectives. And I think it's very destructive when we have a monoculture of we have just one narrative that we repeat in echo chambers. And the moment somebody says something different to that, we attack that person. So I think it's great to have someone like you here to give a counter-narrative effectively on Saudi Arabia. We've already learned today a lot concerning the history of Al Saud, going back to Banu Hadifah, the Christian heritage, which is not a shame, actually is double the reward in Islam, because from Christianity to Islam you get double the reward. Whereas the other Arab tribes may have been pagans and then became Muslims. So we clarify that as well. And also the fact that we have to acknowledge there is a great deal of misdirection, and I would say even propaganda, actually, coming from Muslims towards Muslims, and in the greater scheme of things does not help build anything. It just breaks bridges. We're not building anything positive. We're dividing one another.
Against Islam, Ustad Ibrahim. It's working against Islam, from the way I see it, صراحة. It's working against Islam. And what you said is beautiful about, not necessarily one can agree, but we can keep opinions, don't have to agree with them. But I'm asking my, Muslim brothers that when we come to facts, there's no disagreements. In fact, you cannot disagree on a fact. A fact is a fact. You can challenge it. you can tell me why, but you cannot have an opinion on a fact. This is how I see it. Now, the thing that we construct out of these facts is an opinion that one can have, and everybody, feel free. But, حسن الظن is what I say. Have a good niyyah, have a good. How would you say حسن الظن in English, Mr. Ibrahim?
It's a good to have good perception of people, to have positive kind of perspective on people, to give people a chance. And I find it, personally, I'm not somebody who is, I've lived in many places, I've traveled a lot, and I only see the best in people in situations. Even though I reside in the UK, I reside in the UK, I prefer to look at the good things first before pointing the bad things. Because if you focus on bad things, you find bad things. You become depressed, you depress others, and you end up, everything becomes gloomy and dark and different. But if you focus on the good things, you can build on that.
That's what I'm trying to do. When I came up to this subject, it really affected me negatively. But alhamdulillah, my job now is to sort of send out the message, the knowledge, and then not care about, as long as I feel, as long as you are aware, then I have done what I can do. The rest is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how you will act upon yourself. And it's really, and I think that one of the reasons why this has happened is the split that has happened in the ummah. People are like fed up with other Muslims, are fed up with other Muslims to the degree that they would rather, unite with, and I can see this in social media. They would rather unite with the Zionist or with somebody who is traditionally anti-Muslim than align with the Muslim. And again, this is from the severe tension that has happened, and severe tension is created from things like this, like attacking one another, either because of hate, of jealousy, of misconception, of whatever, but you are opening up a wound that is just waiting for the infection to happen, just waiting for the infection to happen. And I think that we must, put that antibiotic and sort of, I think having these discussions is very important, wallah. And there is, look, nobody lives in the virtuous city of Al-Farabi. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Every place, and I will confess, every place, even Riyadh, even Mecca, some places more than others, have issues, have problems. Certain people have problems worse than, so nobody's perfect. Nobody's claiming, like they are perfect. But we should give gratitude where it deserves, صراحة. We should not lie, and we should be knowledgeable and not sort of transcend our hate to the others, because this thing is packing up. This thing is packing up. And
it is.
When it's going to be very bad. One of the signs you just mentioned is this, pro-Zionist Muslims or anti-Palestinian or whatever. This is really going to be a big problem.
This is a tide.
It's clearly going that way.
This is a trend that I'm with personally. I'm personally testing to this. Day in, day out, I'm following certain accounts that are quite small right now in the grand scheme of things. But these are Muslims who attack other Muslims, and they would align, for example, with Zionists or with Hindu nationalists against other Muslims. I'm literally seeing this. So it does lead somewhere. That's the point. It's not benign. There is something about this trend that leads somewhere else, and the end result is not good. It's division, hatred, enmity, rancor between this Muslim nation, that Muslim nation, and also most of it really, I think, could be resolved with open conversations, quite frankly. Just speak to somebody who lives there or have an open discussion, rather than just following a narrative and feeding into it.
And even, talk to everybody. Talk to Jews, talk to Muslims, we should, in the Middle East, it's truly a problem that we have now, the issue in Gaza is an issue history will not forget. History will remember what is happening, and now the question is who to blame. There are many ways to take, to sort of focus on this issue. And what we must do now and today, outside of politics, I'm talking as human beings, in spaces, in communities, in the internet, is don't stab a wound that is really hurt. And sort of when people are in emotional damage, at a certain point in time, you shouldn't. It's even if they attack you, it's very easy for you to sort of hurt them, but don't do that. Try to be as حاضن. I don't know how to say it in English. As accept
To
soft as
accommodate them, to
possible,
be
let's say.
to be forbearing.
Yeah. And we don't want this conflict صراحة between the Muslims. It's really a big problem. And hopefully I'm really excited about the Ottoman betrayal, because it will answer a lot of the questions that people have about the struggles of other peoples. The struggles of the people in Islam today should be taken seriously, especially by the people that their ancestors remind them of the struggles that they have went through. Even if people don't understand your struggle, you must understand their struggle. And that is what actually jihad is. It's a struggle, a struggle fi sabilillah. So that's what we must do. Struggle for excellence.
Alhamdulillah. It's a good point to end on, but we must have you back, inshallah. There's a lot again. There's so much. I think the issue of Saudi Arabia in the Muslim world, and it's very evocative for many reasons. From my personal study, I take a great deal of interest in this, in contemporary history. I feel that the ignorance is so overwhelming that it is actually a monumental task to even begin lifting the weight of ignorance. It is so overwhelming. I began my first ever video on YouTube. My first ever video on YouTube was on King Faisal Ibn Saud. Yeah, I read a book by Mark Weston, Prophets and Kings. He was an American ambassador, spent a long time in the Middle East, in particular in Saudi Arabia, and he wrote a wonderful book on the history. I read that book from cover to cover and got to understand the foundation of Saudi Arabia, the various kings, the objectives. Things go wrong certain times, of course. Every nation has its ups and downs. But when I read the story of King Faisal, it struck a nerve. I began to read and really go beyond. So I wanted to share that knowledge with others.
You have, and I've watched your episodes about him, and as I said, in a sea of unfairness, I have found the spot of fairness with you, Salah Asad Ibrahim, and I thank you for that. And I think it is a duty for Muslims, especially people who have the ability to sort of reach people in need of this knowledge, to sort of spread this information to them.
Thank you so much for taking time and for sharing with us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Wallah, I thank you for this great platform, and I love your content, and I'll continue to follow, inshallah. Hopefully we can discuss further subjects or this detailed subject later on. And I have learned a lot from your channel, really, and I will continue to, especially the books that you recommend, the reading material, it's wonderful, and continue. Barakallah feek, mashallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, inshallah. See you in the next episode.
The struggle, that happened in the Arabian Peninsula towards the Ottomans is something very, very important. People must understand that we take we feel that it's rude when people, say, why did you do this? You don't know the atrocities that have happened. There, as just like the Armenians claim that there is genocide, 𝙎𝙘𝙀 was razed to the ground. Now this is a spoiler alert, but 𝙎𝙘𝙀 was razed to the ground, and the people who raised it to the ground have absolutely no honor to their word. When they agree upon something, like, okay, if you do this, we won't destroy your city. He does that, and they destroy the city anyway. This is something that is not acceptable in Islam, and no Islam leadership does these kind of things. When you steal and degrade the mosque of the Nabi alayhi salatu salam, digging the grave of Rasul, trying to find some relics or whatever, this is not something that have respected the holy of this, of Islam and of these holy lands. When you take the Prophet's mosque as a military base, and when your troops are, some of them non-Muslims from Bulgaria, and that don't even know how to pray, and non-Muslims have come into the mosque and degrade this holy place, do not ask us why we did the things that we did. When there is a ethnic cleansing of Medina, it's called 𝗪𝗪𝗪 something, it's a Turkish word, I had it. I don't know how to say it in Arabic, but it's very known. Yeah, people can look for it. They took 40,000 people of the Arab people of Al-Medina. They took them and spread them, someplace else, and tried to Turkanize Al-Medina. This was during Fakhri Bash in the 1917 تقريبا. In ثرمدة, when ثرمدة is a city in Najd, just north of 𝙎𝙤𝙤. Before they destroyed 𝙎𝙤𝙤, a lot of the people who lived in 𝙎𝙤𝙤 knew that when they saw Abdullah bin Saud, fortifying himself in 𝙎𝙤𝙤, a lot of people left 𝙎𝙤𝙤 because they know that these people are barbaric. They left. Where did they go? They went to ثرمدة because ثرمدة was a place that was sort of a sanctuary for the area, and the Turks claimed it as being a sanctuary, and they gave people papers claiming that if you have this paper, then you will not be hurt. خلاص, we made an agreement. You are not with Abdullah bin Saud. You stay in ثرمدة. So what they did was they gathered all these people in ثرمدة and they killed all of them. I mean, absolute genocide, erasure of people. 𝙎𝙤𝙤 was struck to the ground. Abdullah bin Saud, the last leader of the first Saudi state, when he was trapped in the fortress, because they now took all of the Hijaz, which is Ibrahim Pasha. This was in 1818.
The son of Mehmed Pasha. Mehmed Pasha.
They took Mecca and Medina, and they reached all the way to 𝙎𝙤𝙤, the stronghold. And Abdullah bin Saud now knew there is absolutely no way he can get out of this. What did he do? He tried to, this is one of the sacrifices I'm talking about when we talk about the Saudi dynasty. He said to Ibrahim Pasha, I will give you myself. You want me. You want the leader of the Saudis, and you want, the Al Saud to end. Take me. I am the leader. Take me. We will open the gates, but please do not kill the people of 𝙎𝙤𝙤, and please do not destroy the city of 𝙎𝙤𝙤. Ibrahim Pasha agreed. He took him, rose 𝙎𝙤𝙤 to the ground, and killed every single person in 𝙎𝙤𝙤. Took Abdullah bin Saud all the way to 𝗾𝙤𝙤, took him there and degraded him as much as he can, and then killed him.
That is well documented.
Absolutely, this is what we call dishonor. And Islam people do not do this. An agreement is an agreement. These are the sort of things that we have went through, and it's absolutely unacceptable. And we can. There's much more. We can have a detailed discussion later on.